guys, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while, but I've been settling into a new space with new lighting conditions and just a new setup entirely. So I've been working on that to get some more content out for you guys. Today we're going to be doing a shoot with some granola. We're going to be focusing on the top-down composition principles that you can take away from this video and that you can start implementing into your pictures. So for something like granola, it's a very high texture food, so you want the background to be quite plain. And you don't want to take away from the actual food. If you have a background that's a bit too busy, then it's going to be taking away from the granola and going to be just a bit too hard to look at and not very eye appealing for people looking at your content. So with that in mind, I'm going to be using this plain marble backdrop today. It's probably one of my most simple backgrounds. I just got it online. It's just a vinyl backdrop. You can just put it over anything. It's very matte, so it doesn't shine very much off of the camera, which is also very good for food photography because then there's going to be those distracting glares and shadows on your shiny surfaces that you just don't want on there. So we're going to be shooting on this plain marble backdrop today, and like I said, we're going to be doing it all basically top down, focusing on all the different ways that you can shoot and vary your shots with the top down angle. Ideally for these shots, you want an overhead tripod. If you don't have one, just make sure your shutter speed is low enough that you can actually get an in-focus image while you're taking it by hand. So you want a tripod that goes overhead, a backdrop of any kind. You don't really need like a proper backdrop. You can use basically anything you can find in your house if it works. You'll also want a reflection board of some kind because overhead shots tend to have some uneven light. It's not like the forward straight on shots where you have your light all on the front image and then that's it. For top-down shots, you have maybe your light sources on this side, and then when you get over to this side, it's a bit darker, and you really want it to be even most of the time. Sometimes there are circumstances where you do want that unevenness in light to kind of, make it look like there's a window on one side, or, tell a story in some other way. But most of the time you want it even throughout to make it just seem all evenly lit and in the same spot. So you're going to want to have some sort of reflection material, whether that is like a foam board. This one's just a trifold board, so it pops up really easily and you can just put it in front of any scene that you want. Or I've mentioned this other one in previous videos. You can go check out my artificial light and all those kind of hacks video. Where I talk about all the different reflection kind of things that I use and that sort of stuff. But the other one that I use very often is this reflective, it's a diffuser with a film over it. It's got gold and silver. Silver is usually a bit more neutral and doesn't warm the scene up too much. But I recommend you having either one of those on the darker side of your shot, so then light comes in, bounces off of that, and bounces back into your shot. I'll do a video later showing the difference between how it looks with a reflector versus without, just to see that difference, because I know it's sometimes a bit subtle. Likewise, if you like the darker side and you want the other side to be a bit darker, you can put a darker black foam board, paper, cardstock, whatever, or even just most of these diffusers have a black background, so you can just use that as well to even out the light. You just want to make sure that light is as even as possible, and you can also edit that in post in Lightroom, but I find that it just looks a bit better if you do it while you're shooting. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the shots. Okay, so here we have our first setup with our little granola clusters. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of texture, within the granola itself. There's lots of different oats and such. So we don't really want the background to be very distracting, like I said. So all I have is this just cookie sheet, parchment paper, and the backdrop. So this setup shows the rule of thirds principle. And you can see that there's this line, and it's roughly chopped into thirds, this shot, and you can see that this piece kind of breaks out of that line that you have from this right here, from the rest of these, and that's to create a bit more interest and a bit more direction for the viewer. So instead of everything just being straight across, you're kind of creating a line of sight that way, by extending this piece further than the rest of these ones that are kind of in a makeshift line. And you usually don't want your lines to be perfect just because it's a bit unrealistic and it just ends up looking a bit more unnatural, which is fine in some shots because that's what you're looking for some shots. But for shots like this, I was shooting for a look that was very natural, very nonchalant, just as if you just pulled it out of the oven, just ready to go. So that's why it's all kind of scattered and it's not like the neatest shot. So like I said, this is the rule of thirds principle, where you have the shot roughly split into thirds and you line up your food mostly along that shot. Like these ones are mostly along those third lines, but then you also have this piece that's outside of it to kind of take your eye through the picture a bit more, rather than just a rigid, here's the thirds, you know? These are the kind of shots that I like to do for more detailed shots, for something like a heavily textured food like granola. This is much more close up than the other examples. And as you can see, this is more rigid along these third lines here. So it almost follows the grid exactly. You know, when you either export to Lightroom, or sometimes you can have the setting on your camera where you can have the guidelines show where the grid is. This basically follows just that. It's a very easy setup, and it's very easy to show texture in an object without having it be boring, because you're actually showing off the actual food. This is a really great shot for like recipe pictures and that sort of thing, so the user can really see what they'd be getting and what to expect out of their food. So yeah, this is a bit easier to follow, and you can apply it with any sort of food really at all, because it just basically follows these grid lines right here, and is still interesting enough because the food itself is interesting. This probably wouldn't work for like fruits and just plain foods like that, just because there's not enough going on to keep it interesting, while also following just this basic kind of layout. And if you liked this whole setup and you wanted to just switch it around a bit, you could easily just take out some pieces from the grid, and even that would just kind of liven it up a bit, make it look a bit different. You know, you could put something in maybe a bit crooked and stuff. As long as you have that focus on the center, there's really no issue and no way that you can go wrong, because like I said, this shot is really just to show off the details of the food. So as long as you're doing that, the shot's basically doing its job. As long as you have, like I said, like your center and your focus, you can really just arrange these in any way that you want and kind of just play around with it and see what you like. Because at the end of the day, that's how you get better, is looking at what you like and just playing around with it and just seeing what looks good, what do I think looks good, and what's going to result in the best shot. That's usually how you get the best shots, is just by playing around with the basics and with the things that you know already look good, and then just trying to take it a step further and outside the box to see if you can really find an image that wows. The last kind of shot, and probably my most favorite type of shot, is just the really simple head-on spotlight kind of shot. This one basically just focuses on one subject. You don't need a lot of patterns going on, you don't need a lot of variety going on. So you can see here we have our main one that we've had in the center for all of our shots, and we've just got little crumbs around here just to kind of mess the scene up a bit, because you don't want it to be perfect, like I said before. So this way you get all the detail that's in that one cluster, and you also get all the attention on it. And you can see I've crumbled the parchment paper a bit in the back to make it look a bit more textured, because I feel like that adds a bit more interest and a bit more life to the picture, whereas just a plain white sheet wouldn't do it really. So like I said, this is one of my favorite type of top-down shots, because it really spotlights the food and it really just has all of the interest in this one focus center. And it's just right away you can tell what it is, and right away you can tell what the food really is. So that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments if you found this helpful. And like I said, please subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I will be starting up my videos again soon. And follow along on Instagram at SporkFed. If you try out these shots and these techniques, please tag me. Please let me know how it went for you, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks.